Ajnascha shradadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti na paro na sukham samshayatmana. Translation. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Text 41. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchina samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadnati dhananjaya. Translation. Therefore, one who has renounced the fruits of his action, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, and who is situated firmly in the self, is not bound by works, O conqueror of riches. Text 42. Tasmad ajnana sambutam hritstahyam yanastit manaha shitva inam samshayam yogam atistostisparata. Translation. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. End of chapter. Transcendental Knowledge. Chapter 5. Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text 1. Arjuna Uvacha Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna Punar Yogam Chasham Sasi Yachchereya Eto Yorekam Tanme Bruhi Sanushtitam. Translation. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sanyasa Karma Yogascha Nishriyeyasa Karavubha Tayos tu Karma Sanyasat Karma Yoga Vishishyate. Translation. The Blessed Lord said, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of works. Text 3. Yeya sa nitya sanyasi yona dveshti nakangshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Translation. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, liberated from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjuna. Text 4. Sankhya Yoga Pritag Bala Pravadanti Napandita Ekam Apyastita Samyag Ubhayor Vindate Phalam. Translation. Only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. Text 5. Yat sankhya prapyate stanam tad yoger api gamyate ekam sankyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sapashyati. Translation. One who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works in devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. Back to text 437. I'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As the blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Purport. Perfect knowledge of self and super self and of their relationship is compared herein to fire. This fire not only burns up all reactions to impious activities, but also all reactions to pious activities, turning them to ashes. There are many stages of reaction: reaction in the making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. But knowledge of the constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reactions, both a priori and a posteriori, are consumed. In the Vedas, it is stated, Ubhe uhai vaisha ete tarat yamrita sad ashuduni. One overcomes both the pious and impious interactions of work. That's an amazing purport by His Divine Grace. Perfect knowledge, stressing the importance of knowledge of the self and the super self. And Prabhupada says it burns up all reactions to impious activities and also pious activities, because those are somewhat temporary as well. And, if someone, someone may be doing many, they may be reading the Vedas and doing sacrifices, and they may be even trying to get some material benefit, but they maybe think they're doing something pious, even though they're doing something for material benefit. So if we do things for material benefit, then it's not spiritual. And these pious activities are somewhat temporary, if they're not completely spiritualized. And at the end of the day, it's just devotion to Krishna. We don't necessarily want or need credit for every little thing that we do, because at the end of the day, Krishna knows our heart, and it's about being a servant to him. So imagine being a servant, but then saying, I've done all these pious activities, I've done all these good things, and but that is in the past. What are you doing right now? But we do get credit for all of our spiritual activities. That does go into our spiritual bank account. That never never depletes. So, and it actually, life after life, you get that credit. It will never go down. So everything you do spiritual, all your spiritual work, you are building up a spiritual bank account. Let me check a couple things here. Oh, that's that. Transcendental knowledge thus destroys all reactions, both pious and sinful. Of course, except for matured reactions, such as one's present material body. That's called parabdha karma. So that's interesting. Text 38. In this world, there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. Nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Sublime, it's like perfect. It's like another word for blissful. It's sublime and pure. It's blissful and pure. And how many people in this world think that other things that aren't so nice, like trying to gratify their senses, they're thinking that's sublime. They're thinking that's the most bliss they can get. But the Gita, Krishna says here, he sings to Arjuna. He sings that there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. So this knowledge is what people are missing, and even we are missing a little bit, even different amounts of transcendental knowledge. Myself, of course, is missing the most, but we want to be hungry for this transcendental knowledge, and it's never quite enough. And you can enjoy, if you achieve this, you can enjoy the self within yourself in due course of time. So you're not reliant on external sources for enjoyment. It's like a stage of samadhi. And purport. When we speak of transcendental knowledge, we do so in terms of spiritual understanding. As such, there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Ignorance is the cause of our bondage, and knowledge is the cause of our liberation. This knowledge is the mature fruit of devotional service. And when one is situated in transcendental knowledge, he need not search for peace elsewhere, for he enjoys peace within himself. In other words, this knowledge and peace are culminated in Krishna consciousness. That is the last word in the Bhagavad Gita. What a powerful statement there at the end. This is the last word in the Bhagavad Gita. He's really emphasizing that. And this knowledge is the mature fruit of devotional service. So the sweetest fruit of devotional service is not, yogic mysticism or siddhis. It's this knowledge. This knowledge is the ripest, sweetest fruit we can taste. And so tuning in to the classes, and chanting the rounds and following the regular principles, that will get you there. If you keep on that track, that will get you there. And what's the reward? What's one of the big rewards? Peace. Because we look around in this world and there's not so much peace, but if you get this transcendental knowledge, you can enjoy peace within yourself. Because peace is quite the luxury. Peace is becoming harder and harder to find, and people are going deeper into sense gratification, and also just looking at all the world around them, whether it's social media or news or their friend group or their family group, and they're saying, where's the peace? Where's the chance to talk about God? Where's the chance to talk about Krishna? That's what we're missing in this world. In course of time. Now, in course of time means that it is gradual. It's not overnight, but is gradually revealed in the heart of one practicing Nishkama Karma Yoga. And by work, not by renouncing work, it manifests. So only through work in pure knowledge can this manifest. Now, Krishna explains the role of faith in acquiring knowledge. Faith. Do we have to have faith? Text 39. A faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. Subduing the senses quickly, right? That's one of the keys. Because I used to watch this show where the person would work with kind of problem canines, problem dogs. You all might have seen it a long time ago. And I was a little bit obsessed with it, but it was known that if you stop the dog at the right time, you see something in the eyes, they might do a sideways look or something. But if you stop the dog at the right time, the attack doesn't happen. He would give a little nudge with his foot, or he would give a remember the ch sound. So he would do that, and he would stop the dog. It was like magic. It was like, wow, how is he doing that? He knew how to control. He knew how to kind of stop things before they spiral out of control. And we have to do that for ourselves too, because we can spiral if we're not careful. And we have to tell our minds and our intelligence sometimes, slow down, give it a little kick. And because it can happen so fast, we have to quickly subdue the senses, and then we can quickly attain the supreme spiritual peace. But it is like sometimes it's a matter of a few seconds to really kind of get a stop on a certain direction. If you start to go down, the interstate, start to enter the wrong way up the off ramp, you see that sign and you quickly go back the other way. You don't say, I'll go up at the top of the off ramp and I'll turn around at the top. No, you know you're in danger, so you have to quickly turn around. Purport. Such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls the senses can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. Rishikesh is the master of the senses, and Krishna is the master of controlling of the senses, and he wants us to learn how to control our senses because he doesn't want his children out of control like that. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. So it's so simple that people miss it. And they'll say, wait, isn't it supposed to be more complicated than this? Let's not overcomplicate it. A little bit of, the faith in the mantra, the faith in the devotional service. When we wake up and throughout our day, how strong is our faith in the process? It's a mystical process, so it takes some faith, and we always wanted to test it out. We said, let's test this out, and we see the beauty of it. We see the beauty and in the Maha Mantra and the purificatory nature of it. And then without faith, peace is unobtainable. So if one does not have faith, there's no peace. There's no peace if you don't have faith like that. Here's a quote. The qualifications Krishna is saying is that a person must be faithful, dedicated, and sense controlled. He works faithfully and knows that his detached work will bring transcendental knowledge and the supreme spiritual peace, liberation. Without faith, as Krishna explains below, peace is unobtainable. So if we get past our ego, it's like part of it is getting past our false ego and we may think, oh, I just keep getting knocked down, but maybe Krishna is giving us exactly what we need to be able to have faith and to be able to stop our false ego and to be able to be tolerant when it comes to things that should be tolerated. Obviously not everything has to be tolerated, but the small stuff, as they say, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. And so those moments, we're just going to try to be tolerant. We're going to try to push the false ego down, and we're going to say, what would Krishna want me to do? How would Krishna act? How would Srila Prabhupada act? How would Guru Dev act? How would they want me to act? How would Guru Dev want me to act? And think about it for a second, and then over time, you get really good at making really good choices, and they can happen really fast. When someone's learning music, you go very slow, and then if you take quality at a slow tempo, and then you speed that up. You don't go straight to trying to go fast. A good musician starts very slow, snail's pace. The hardest thing is to go slow enough. Most people don't want to go slow and steady because it requires what? A lot of patience. So we're also increasing our levels of patience and faith. Text. This is a good time maybe to, well, let's see here, 40. I think I might skip to text 42, he summarizes the chapter. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Purport. The yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana Yoga, or eternal activities performed by the living entity. This yoga has two divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of one's material possessions, and the other is called knowledge of self, which is pure spiritual activity. If sacrifice of one's material possessions is not dovetailed for spiritual realization, then such sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs such sacrifices with a spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. When we come to spiritual activities, we find that these are also divided into two, namely understanding of one's own self or one's constitutional position, and the truth regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who follows the path of the Gita, as it is, can very easily understand these two important divisions of spiritual knowledge. For him, there's no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Lord. And such understanding is beneficial for such a person who easily understands the transcendental activities of the Lord. In the beginning of this chapter, the transcendental activities of the Lord were discussed by the Supreme Lord himself. One who does not understand the instructions of the Gita is faithless and is to be considered to be misusing the fragmental independence awarded to him by the Lord. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as the eternal, blissful, all-knowing personality of Godhead is certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods, sacrifice to Brahman, sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas, and in partaking of the social institution called Varnashram Dharma. So it's a social institution that's supposed to lead people to spirituality. It's not necessarily spiritual on its own, but it's to lead people there. All of these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulated action. But within all these activities, the important factor is self-realization. One who seeks that objective is the real student of Bhagavad Gita, but one who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture under a bona fide spiritual master with service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master is in the disciplic succession from time eternal, and he does not deviate at all from the instructions of the Supreme Lord as they were imparted millions of years ago to the sun god, from whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita have come down to the earthly kingdom. One should, therefore, follow the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is expressed in the Gita itself and beware of self-interested people after personal aggrandizement who deviate others from the actual path. The Lord is definitely the Supreme Person, and his activities are transcendental. One who understands this is a liberated person from the very beginning of his study of the Gita. So if Krishna is the quarterback, everyone on the team needs to have a lot of faith in the quarterback, and the quarterback doesn't really want anyone on the team who doesn't have faith in him, because it's just going to hurt the whole team. And so faith in Krishna, faith that in his leading the show, faith in his plan, and that's what he really wants. And we're going to get some really good benefits if we keep that faith, if we have that and cultivate that faith. We will continue to make progress, spiritual progress. So here in this purport, he talks about the goal of sacrifice, the two levels of spiritual knowledge, learning of the Lord's transcendental activities, the goal of sacrifice, part 2, and then properly learning transcendental knowledge. I'd like to look at a plate real quick, plate 19. One of these pictures here. Plate 19. Plate 19. He who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. So here in plate 19, we see this is from verse 5.4 through 6. So I'll just read those verses real quick. 5 through 4 through 6. So verses only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. One who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works in devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. Unless one is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sages, purified by works of devotion, achieve the supreme without delay. So here in this plate, a devotee is engaged in various devotional activities for the deities. That's the top row. A devotee is engaged in various devotional activities for the deities, authorized incarnations of the Lord, who comes in this form to accept our service. Below, a Sankhya yogi engages in the analytical study of matter and spirit. After some time, he realizes the Lord, the forms of Radha and Krishna include all other forms of the Lord, within his heart, and then he engages in devotional service. The end is the same, devotional service. So they both get to the same spot. But a devotee can get there without delay. Can get there without delay. Not doesn't have to meditate for hundreds of years in the forest or anything like that. Just practice devotional service. Practice devotional service. Have faith, and you will have peace, and then you will attain that devotional service. The other thing I wanted to those little bookmarks we have, those understanding the Gita bookmarks. Remember those? So some of these popped up. I wonder what would be more fun, to read the verse and then the category. I think that might be fun. So here's a text. 439. A faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. A faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. That is mastering the senses, under the category mastering the senses. And then 5.2. The Blessed Lord said, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of works. And that was categorized under self-realization. And it was also categorized under devotional service. So this is a great verse regarding self-realization and devotional service. The Blessed Lord said, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of works. 5.1. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" So this sounds a lot like chapter 3, text 1. Arjuna said, "O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work?" So he's still wanting clarification on renunciation or work in devotion. Purport. In this 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that work in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Devotional service is easier than the latter because, being transcendental in nature, it frees one from reaction. In the 2nd chapter, preliminary knowledge of the soul and its entanglement in the material body were explained. How to get out of this material engagement by buddhi yoga or devotional service was also explained therein. In the third chapter, it was explained that a person who is situated on the platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. And in the fourth chapter, the Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work culminate in knowledge. However, at the end of the fourth chapter, the Lord advised Arjuna to wake up and fight, being situated in perfect knowledge. Therefore, by simultaneously stressing the importance of both work and devotion and inaction in knowledge, Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. Arjuna understands that renunciation in knowledge involves cessation of all kinds of work performed as sense activities. But if one performs work in devotional service, then how is work stopped? In other words, he thinks that sannyasam, or renunciation in knowledge, should be altogether free from all kinds of activity, because work and renunciation appear to him to be incompatible. He appears not to have understood that work in full knowledge is non-reactive and is therefore the same as inaction. He inquires, therefore, whether he should cease work altogether or work with full knowledge. It's Krishna's plan that Arjuna remain confused because their dialogue is taking place for our benefit. But Krishna is saying that he's stressing further that work and renunciation are not opposed to each other. One must learn to work in a renounced spirit. Arjuna thinks that jnana implies the renunciation of work, and that knowledge and work, like light and dark, are contradictory. Krishna emphasizes, however, that one in knowledge should also work. Hare Krishna. Devotional service. So any comments or questions from anyone for the dialogue? Hare Krishna. Rishi Kumar Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So we're zooming into a really interesting part of the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna and these texts that you got to speak on and that we got to hear about this evening. I just wanted to jump into it a little bit on one particular part about it. So in the main question, Arjuna, he was asking, "Oh Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" So we got to see the whole kind of lead up to that with the verses from tonight. If you go back a little bit, Krishna, he was describing Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga, this getting transcendental knowledge in the last chapter. He was saying, as the blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions of material activities. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. A faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So you see, he's going, and then he says, an ignorant and faithless person who doubts the revealed scriptures does not attain God consciousness. For the doubt, so he's talking about knowledge. So it seems like, okay, he wants me to, engage in, as Arjuna's thinking at first, giving up activities and just taking knowledge. But then all of a sudden, if we're not understanding what he's saying, which Arjuna's put into that position, then it seems like he switches it up all of a sudden at the end of the chapter. Therefore, one who has renounced the fruits of his action, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, who is firmly situated in the self, is not bound by works. And then all of a sudden, Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed with the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So at first it sounds like he's saying, if we don't have the full idea, okay, just go engage in, Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga, learn this transcendental knowledge. But then all of a sudden he says, no, fight. So Arjuna, he's saying here, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion all of a sudden. Now will you kindly tell me which is more beneficial? So when Arjuna, sorry, I know it's a long comment, but I just found this really interesting. So if you don't mind, Arjuna was saying, where's the word that he uses? I just saw it when we were going through the text. Okay, yeah. It says, Arjuna uvacha sanyasam karmanam Krishna. He's thinking that Krishna is talking about karma sannyas, which, as you'll see in the purports in these texts, Prabhupada describes that's more like Mayavadi sannyas, just renouncing action, renouncing the whole world, giving up activity. And so Arjuna is saying, first you recommend this, karma sannyas, giving up all activity. But the thing is, Krishna wasn't saying that. He was talking about renunciation, but he's not recommending that you just give up activity. So you see here in the next text, Krishna says, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of works. So he brings up he uses Arjuna's definition of renunciation in this. So in this text, he's saying, first of all, you're foolish. He said, okay, I'll use your definition of karma sannyas. Let's pretend that renunciation means karma sannyas. That's just giving up actions. He says, okay, with your definition. So first of all, you're foolish because renunciation of work, this karma sannyas, and devotion, they're both good for liberation. And even if you're saying that renunciation means giving up activities, karma sannyas, it's devotional service is still better. And then in the next text, now he gives his definition of renunciation. He says, and you're double foolish because one who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. So you'll see in the purports that how Prabhupada describes it. He's saying renunciation doesn't mean that you have to give up things, but you have to give up desires. So that's real renunciation, is to give up your material desires. Like Prabhupada says in the purport that everything's already Krishna's. So you can't give that up. But real renunciation is to use everything in Krishna's service. So after he makes that point, then he kind of brings it home one more time in the next text, where it says, only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. And then, like you were showing with that picture, that's the whole purpose of Sankhya Yoga, or Krishna's definition of renunciation, is that, Sankhya means going through the whole material world, putting it into categories. So there's like 26 elements. So, you got the earth, water, fire, air, wind, earth, water, fire. Then you got ether, then the mind, intelligence, false ego. Now we're somewhere around like 10 or 12 or something. And then you got the senses, sense objects, and you keep going. And then you ultimately, after all those, you get to the soul. And then above that, there's the super soul. So when someone realizes all those, they realize, okay, what's my relation to the super soul? I'm his servant. So let me just engage in his service.
Yeah.
So Krishna is saying, better than going through all of that, better you just start at the result of that, which is, okay, I'm his servant, let me engage in his service. So I just think it's a really cool part of the Bhagavad Gita. Sorry if that was too long.
No, thank you for that clarificatory, for those clarificatory remarks. Thank you very much. And renunciation, also renouncing our control over the outcomes, and now renouncing, stand up and fight, and renounce renounce your urge to control the outcome of the battle. Renounce your attachment to outcomes, and that's Krishna's job, is to take care of that. So he's saying just act and act in Krishna consciousness, and then let me take care of the rest. Let me take care of that. And yeah, if we can save hundreds of lifetimes, it's like sitting there with the safe. The analogy of the safe. Someone gives you why sit there and struggle with cracking a safe open? If someone hands you the code to the safe, you can save years, thousands of years, maybe. So much time can be saved, and time is of the essence. Everyone feels this kind of this time factor, just destroying everything. And so we want to make fast progress. When we used to play more video games, we'd take that warp, if you'd like. Sometimes say, oh, I'll play the whole game because I already beat it once. But sometimes it's fun to find the secret warp place, and you just go to do a quick pass of a lot of struggle. That's a good thing. Jai Keshava, did you have something?
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to highlight a verse I think you already did pretty well. I mean, I just liked it. Text 439, chapter 4, text 39. A faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. I just like that absorbed, and just thinking about how can we stay absorbed more and more. And in that way we can be peaceful, get that supreme spiritual peace. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, let's not just dip our toes in the water our whole lives of Krishna consciousness. We want to swim, we want to jump into the beautiful waters of Krishna consciousness, because the water is wonderful. It's okay to start with dipping your toes just to check the temperature. But once you find that the temperature is really nice, definitely try to become absorbed and those beautiful waters. All right. Yes, Radha Stali Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Actually, on the same verse, 439, I like your example of controlling the senses is like trying to control our senses quickly is like driving on a highway and then, exiting as soon as you figure out you're going the wrong way. Jai Keshava and I experienced this on a road trip. We probably drove about 30 minutes away from where we were on the wrong highway. And as soon as we found out, we turned around quickly. I just like that example. I never thought of it like this. And it's really nice meditation, actually. And then also I just like on Rishi Kumar's realization, it just I appreciate like this discussion, because so often we read the Gita with others or even by ourselves, but we don't hear certain things a certain way. And I like how Rishi Kumar, you just reworded it in a way that's really personal. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how you see it. And then as I'm hearing, you both share your realizations, I'm able to see it that way too. And it's different than how I see it, and understand it and understand like their conversations. So I really appreciate our Bhagavad Gita classes.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. That's why these classes are so valuable. And we encourage people to tune into the streams and to come in person, because you will it's that coming to the classes, and even if you don't feel great or you're thinking you're down on yourself or whatever it is, what doesn't matter, just get in that habit, get in the pattern of going to classes, because we always feel so good after the class or during the class. I always feel so good, and it's like we get a chance to talk and about things, and to take this, it always makes sense here. And then sometimes we're going throughout our day, and then it's like to keep this consciousness, to try to keep this consciousness we have at this moment, to keep that understanding alive all day, and to be able to stay in that consciousness, I think is a goal of mine. So, all right. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai.